I am debating giving all of the knights and probably the captains on the ground. And I've just noticed he's got the same insignia. That's annoying. Oh, well, as he's only one, I can make it. That's just his armour. It's not citywide. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to give all of the samurai style back banner. And in order to do that, I need to drill a hole in the centre of their back plates in order to attach it. Consequently, I need my 1mm pin vise. And yeah, I'm going to do it on him as well. He's the only other military officer here. But I figured the knights would be higher level than the militia anyway. But the captain on the ground would still have his lord's banner, if nothing else. I know it's a very odd. You'd be thinking, shouldn't I be drilling down? But I want them to look like they're stuck onto the model's back. And I figure the only way I can do that is to attach them to their back. But that's quite a weak joint if I just stick it like that. So I'm actually going to put a hole, just a fraction, into their chest or into their spine, and have the flag have a peg going in and bend up and across, and then I'm going to cover that part so it just looks like it's coming straight down. So that's one. Probably the most complicated one because he's at such a weird angle and his head's not straight. What I'm doing there is by pushing the pin vise as far in as it'll go and then sliding my thumb up and down until I pretty much get in line with the back of the model. When I pull it out, I can see how deep the hole is. As these are nice, thick, chunky models, I figure I might as well go about as deep as I dare. Make sure I've got a decent grip, decent joint. It also means there's some space for the air to go while I fill the glue and things into the hole. If you take a 1 metre deep hole and shove something 1 metre into it plus glue, where does the air that gets trapped go? So deeper is better. And the chests on these guys are about 8 or 9 mil thick anyway, so plenty of room. A nice sturdy metal model, so no issues there. Still mildly irritated I didn't spot the thing on him, but yeah, it is what it is. Can't do anything about it now. I'm not sure whether I'm going to give this captain a sword or another lance. If it being he'd still have a lance. Although he's an officer, he's still a knight, isn't he? But I'll probably give him a sword just to make him look a bit different, because all of these guys are going to have shields. So. And right, my secret banner technique. It's a paperclip, and let's cut off this piece. It's not actually going to be long enough for what I want to do, but it will do to show you what I plan to do. It's also slightly bent, so we'll straighten that. So yeah, so imagine this is being taken from one of the longer pieces. So like, although that one's crooked if you like, it will in fact be straight. So gunning plan is to glue the flag in like that. And the wire on these paper clips is actually about 1.1 millimeters. It's really annoying. But they're so much cheaper than buying brass rod. And that brass rod costs about £1 a length, maybe more, especially if you have to pay postage as well. And paper clips cost me nothing. There we go. Yeah, so that'll go in there, and then it'll be bent over like that to create a natural shape. But this plastic tube is just the right size for sliding these down the holes. And if I cut a small notch, I don't know if that'll show up. Yeah, I've cut a tiny notch off. If I then cut, string that out, it's a bit wonky. There you go. This particular piece is then going to slide over the top. brush over the hole, and now obviously that one's not a very good bend, but that's the idea, and then it'll look like there's a socket sort of welded onto the back of the armour that the flag then just sits in. All very cunning. And what I can't decide, do I stick them on, but stick them on straight, so they're just sticking up, and I'll bend them later. I think that's probably the way to go, because I'm not sure I'm going to do the banners yet. I might just do them with paper, but if I'm going to do that, then I'll want to create like a couple of rings or something, so they look like they're attached rather than just free floating, if you see what I mean. Yeah, so I think I'll just do, for now I will do that. That's my cunning plan, and I'm going to stick with it. So for that I'm going to need 4 nice long straight pieces. Is that long enough, is the question. And I don't think it is. So I guess I'm going to need to straighten some more of these out. It's not bad actually, that one. See how much like straightening out the spears earlier, it's pretty much just a case of finding the bit that's not quite straight, tweaking it there. Again, this is one of those times where it would be easier to just use a piece of brass rod or something, but again, I don't have any to hand. I want to get this done, and I've done this in the past and it works alright. Sometimes you've got banners and things attached to it, you can't really see the bends anyway. Definite bend in that one. Before I go through all this hassle, let's just check. Modeling, quite often it's easier to just take a tiny bit off of these than it is to make that hole a fraction wider. So make sure it's cleaned out. Any burrs or anything in there. It wasn't the cleanest of holes. Being such a tiny bit, I don't want to put too much sideways pressure on. But that'd be plenty high enough, wouldn't it? Bend it about there so it comes back here. Yeah, so I don't need to do all that straightening. Plenty enough. And probably not the cleanest of holes now. It's a bit snug. Take some of the burrs off where I cut it. And that should go in. Yeah, nice and smoothly. And just take the edges off. Not too bothered actually about doing it on that end, because chances are that's the end that I'm going to cut to shape anyway. Yeah, I'll save those bits and use them on pins for other models if need be. Yeah, they seem to work quite nicely. Stick those down. I'm not wearing any shoes, so I'm sure I'll find that one that I just dropped. I'll walk across here. Yeah, not sure where that one went. No, I'm sure I'll find it. It's the point where I get super glue all over my fingers. And the last one. Just trying to get it so that it's straight with its back rather than vertical. And I'll sort those bits out another time. Right. I need 2 of these lances. Again, another shield that I'm not going to use. Any of these particularly bent. Let's make it easier to do. That's pretty straight. Oh, how ironic. The one I cut off first is the one that's not straight. Or least straight, I should say. Maybe these shields aren't using scenery or something, have them pressed into the dirt. Now, part of me is very curious to know, because this video's going to be pushing 2 hours, if not more by now. I'm curious to know who's actually still watching at this point. So, here's a challenge. If anybody wants to be officially known as my most loyal viewer, leave a comment. Leave a comment on the video that just says what we're going to go with. Dongle. No explanation at all. Just write the word dongle in a comment on the video. I'll be very appreciative. I can't say you'll win that because then it becomes a contest, and I think YouTube has weird rules about contests, but you will receive my admiration and respect and thanks. There you go. That's all I can offer. And you're the 2 normal ones. Yeah. So, how does that work? Do I want to pin these? I don't think I do. That's a pretty good contact point in there. So I don't think they'll need it. It's quite a deep socket that it lines up into. And it glues into the arm, into the thing. So you come here. Because they're not mid-charge, they're sort of got their lances up. Pulled in tight type deal. Although, again, wishing I had more hands. That move. Pretty sure that moved. Yeah. No, no, no. Casualties. Man down. I was hoping it was going to be a little bit higher than that, but that'll do. Note number 1. And you're going to be much higher. I'm going to take a little off that shoulder. Now, how are we going to do your sword? This one I might pin, because it's a bit more delicate. And I'm thinking something like that. In which case, yes, I'm definitely going to pin it. Only a small pin, but a pin nonetheless. So, get you out of the way. So that needs to come in at about 45-degree angle. Just going to put it somewhere around there. And not a very big pin. It's only about 3 mil deep, but maybe even 2. But given that that arm's only about 3 across, I'm probably going to need to be careful with it. And the pin is just below there, so I need that to go in at about the angle. drop me arm. Step 1. Again, this is the same sword design as the captain on foot in the militia. So I think it's supposed to be more a cutlass, but I've done it as more a koposh, or perhaps a scimitar. Another funky word to say when you're talking about swords. So anybody can say they've got a sword, a scimitar, or a koposh. I'm guessing that's about there. It's not far off. Although it's at a far steeper angle than I originally planned, so let's grab this and bend his arm at the elbow rather than at shoulder. Which will have the exact same effect. Bringing his arm into line. There you go. There's my Night Force. That worked rather well. What else we got? Quick beverage. Now, this one technically is part of the Empire, but not part of the Knights of Anyaral range, but I kind of like the model, and it's basically a big loyal hunting dog that comes with them, so, you know, wanted to be different. So if the knights are going to be that high, and I don't want this guy to end up looking like a horse, so I don't want to put him up on a thing because he'll be at the same height, so plain base. Which I guess means I need to cover that strip, so So this will be the world's simplest model to do. Just dab that over the hole, making sure all the edges are down. And this guy we just want to stick in the middle, so blob on each foot. Yeah, the world of Twilight, there are several sub-factions, if you like. The main faction, the protagonists of the world, if you like, is the Empire. And the Empire is made up of several sub-factions. You have citizens of the Empire, which includes lots of engineers and experimental weapons that tend to go bang. You have the traders of the Empire. It's a very scenario-driven game. So you quite often have traders acting almost as mobile objectives, if you like, but they hire bodyguards and mercenaries and so forth. So a trade caravan is quite a cool force to model up. You have the Protectorate, I think is how they're called, who are the big merchants guild, and they have their own standing army. You have the standard knights and militia. You have the Knights of Anyaral. You have a group of, I want to say they're called the Degu or something. Essentially, they are the slightly more savage end of the scale. You have the Knights of Relon, these guys, who are the heavy cavalry. As you can see, they're on a bigger base, and their beasties are a little bit taller, they're a little bit chunkier, they've got mail, their armour's quite ornate. And generally these two are separate factions, but there's no reason you can't use them together in an Empire army. So that's exactly what I'm going to do for my fluff, and just use them as heavy cavalry, normal cavalry, and then eventually I'll get some of the light cavalry. This is the first model that I've had a minor issue with, and I just want to check that these are all the same before I go any further, and I'm 99% certain they're not, because one of them's a left hand and one of them's a right, so that must be with him. He's actually a character model, and the big difference being he's got even more ornate armor, and he's got a crest of fur or hair or something hanging from his helmet. But yes, the same. And I've just noticed he's also got that chest piece, so that's going to have to get filed down. So I'll do that in a second. These guys don't. I'm not bothered about the ornate stuff on the helm or on the shoulder piece. What would that be? Is that carapace? Is that still carapace? Anyway, I figure I'll do that in a sort of gold embroidered thing or something to stand out. They did have the fishy thing on the front. Actually, they didn't have the fishy one because they're from a different faction. But either way, that came off. That had to go. Yeah, so I have two standard knights and then the slightly more ornate looking one, which will work out quite nicely as the equivalent of two normal guys and a mounted captain. And I'm fairly certain, but yeah, this is the, out of all the models that I bought, including another one that's over there, and we'll get to him in a minute, this is the only one where I had a problem with the metal breaking. And the joint where the spear haft goes all the way through, where it meets the hand is quite narrow. It's quite a pinch of a gap, and I don't think all the metal got in there, or it didn't. It comes in because it starts in the middle and goes out. I didn't think it expanded fully, and this one had a bit of a kink in it. So I've actually already done it because it was so fiddly. I was not going to do it on camera, but from there all the way down to about here is one pin, so it's about yay big, and that's probably now the strongest part of that whole spear. These ones were fairly straight, so I haven't had that issue. This one was borderline, and I'm going to risk it, and if I have to, I'll drill it out like that one. But if I can get away with it, I'll get away with it. Yeah, so these guys have their lances. I'm not going to stick them down on the base yet because I'm not sure how much bigger or smaller they are than the other ones. So I want to put a helmet, put a head on their beasties, then try and work out what's what, and work out where the lance is in relation to the rest of it, and so on. Then try and get them a bit more central. Again, I'm going to do the samurai style banners on the backs of these. Fairly straight. My sanding wasn't, but you can't have everything. And I think I said earlier that I thought the guy that did the range did his own casting, and I've just noticed that some of these models have got hassle-free written on the tabs. I'm guessing he gets them cast up by hassle-free, or at least he did. I don't know if that's still the case. Maybe he just did that when he first started, because these are some of the older models in the range. Because I didn't notice it on the last two factions, or the first two factions that I put together, which are the latest two, I think. But yeah, as I was saying, there's the Empire of the world, and if I'm pronouncing it correctly, is populated. It's the Empire of the Fubanu. There's a lot of weird names in this game, and I have trouble with weird names. So yeah, so there's the Fubanu, who were originally a slave race to a much bigger and scarier predator. Think of these guys as the herbivores in your Jurassic Park. These are your trikes and your Gallimimus, and they were ruled by the much larger, as in the normal cavalry, the normal guys from the other race stand on 40mm bases, and they're the size of cavalry on their own. They were in charge and had these guys slaved, and at some point somebody worked out, well, we're the ones making all the tools, we're the ones making all the weapons and things, why don't we use them as well? And they overthrew and slayed their oppressors and formed their empire on the ashes of the old one. And now, yeah, they're the protagonists of the game. The other beasties are still around, but they live out in the wild in much smaller numbers, and the knights of the empire were basically formed originally to fend off the other guys trying to come back. I want to say they're called the Divanu, but as I say, I'm not good with names. I will do a video, I suspect, at some point about the gameplay and the world and everything, because it's a very weird little game. Sorry, that didn't come out right. Weird's not the right word. It's a unique game. It doesn't use dice to attack in the same way that most games do. It doesn't use cards like Malifaux does. You're casting rune stones, which is kind of cool. And then every creature in the game has one wound, so a single hit could kill anything. But the more powerful characters and creatures have ways of manipulating combat to the point where they don't actually take that wound, but they do that by spending stamina, which is a limited resource. So if you want, you can go all guns blazing and spend all of your stamina making yourself into a highly effective killing machine, but you leave yourself vulnerable. So it's got a bit of push and pull, push your luck kind of mechanic, and it's, you know, where do you draw the line? And I like that. It also gives the opportunity for the lowest of the low, this tiny little slinger, who I think it's like 15-20 points, to take out a potentially a 200-point character in his little moment of glory. And I like hero stories like that. I like the underdog. But the underdog would probably be these guys, who are basically just attack dogs. But anyway, I digress. So we'll get that up there. That seems to fit quite nicely. And I don't want to do this yet because I want to put the banners on, so I'm going to have to be careful with this guy. But by doing so, I'll be able to see where they stand relative to everything else. Where do I want to position them on the base then? Well, definitely facing forwards and slightly to one side, I think. So, again, bit of a kink in his base or in his tab. Same with these guys. Cool. Obviously a bigger gap on the bigger base, because that's quite a free floating model. There we go. So it seems to be fairly central, so we'll use that guy as a guide. Stick this one on and then use him as a guide. But yeah, so you have the Fubanu Empire, which is made up of several sub-factions. You have the Devanu tribes, I suppose they are. Don't know if that's the official term, but there are clans, packs, however you want to word it. They're all small groups rather than a collective faction, if you like. Empire, nation, whatever you want to call it, however you want to word it. You have the Drogu, I think. Basically, you've got the I'm going to stop trying to pronounce names. I'm just going to give you the gist of the fact. So you've got the Empire faction, the civilized faction, which has its many sub-factions within it. You have an Imperial faction that are based up in the mountains in the north, and they're very much mountain men. They've got they wear a lot of furs. That's actually where this guy's from, which is why he's slightly hairy. You have there's a foreign faction, as I understand it from the fluff, who are, I'm not sure if they were part and separated or what, but basically they're a bunch of religious zealots. And there are some other creatures who are much bigger versions of these things. And when I say big, I mean like big. They're on like 60, 70 mil bases, and they tower over these things. Kind of the equivalent of a sort of, think of a dreadnought standing over a space marine, that kind of size difference. They've just started waking up, and they're being worshipped as gods. But yeah, they're a bunch of religious zealots, and they're attempting to take over a lot of the lands that the Empire has. There's a faction called the Kasani, who are roughly translated as the Native Americans or the Mongol hordes. They live out on the plains. They're very one with nature. They're not uncivilized. They're very civilized, but they're not very technologically advanced. That's the first faction I painted and assembled. There is the Frenu. Frenu's one of the things in there. What are they called? The Kadashi. They are essentially nature come to life. They're little birds, or big birds, but they're sentient, and they have lots of swarm tactics, but they also call on big creatures from the forest and so forth. So there's those. There is... Is that it? There's about 5 factions overall, and then you've got the sub-factions within. So there's those. Right, you are a different kettle of fish. You're a different arm, you're a different head, but I suspect you're much the same in terms of where you go on the base. I ummed and ahed off camera before I started this video. I was debating putting this guy on some sort of rock to make him a little bit taller than these guys, but I'm going to not do so. Although the more I look at these guys, they're very similar, and on the tabletop there's not going to be a huge difference, so maybe I will. But yes, I will. So I'll stick this together so it'll glue. Start setting. Oh, he's actually got his hand reaching around, grabbing the neck of the thing, sort of, you know, there, well done. So I'm going to have to line that up a bit more carefully. But yeah, so I'm going to stand him on his base, or on a rock on his base. Make him look all important. Yeah, so I have the swamp creatures, or the forest creatures. That's the other faction I've just put together, but I haven't even started painting them yet. I've got these guys being all civilized, and I have the nomadic tribes. I'll go in there. So when he goes on his base, is he going to be basically in the same place? Yeah, he's pretty much going to be in the middle, off slightly to that side, but cork. The nature faction, the swamp faction, the forest faction is what I was looking for. Although they do have swamp stuff as well. Just a little troglodyte type guys. They fight completely differently to every other faction in the game because of their swarm tactics. They don't have stamina, so their big creatures are quite vulnerable, but the smaller ones will sacrifice themselves and essentially act as stamina, but you end up killing off your own men. But for that reason, because you're expected to be killing off your own troops to save your more important ones, they're cheap, so you have huge great swarms. I've got like 20 or 30 of the small birds, not to mention the ones, and that's the individuals, and then I have others that are mounted 5 or 6 to a base to represent the swarms. What are we doing? That's going to make him significantly taller. That'll make him look important. Yeah, we like that. So just need to keep chipping away. And get rid of this big flat spot on the top, because you don't get flat spots on rocks. Yes, I know you do with slate, but it still doesn't look right. Plus, if you're riding a big ostrich with hooves rather than feet, you don't want to go clambering on tall rocks, because you just slide off and you get yourself hurt. Knock off some of these flat bits. Smooth bit, I suppose, is probably a better word. A bit lower than others. Scrape a few trenches in. Okay, getting there. It's one of those bits off. Yeah, I want a bit of an undercut here. There, that area there is looking a bit flat now, isn't it? That should do. Yep, so we'll get that one stuck down. And because it's such a big rock, I'm not going to worry about covering that hole. We need something a bit differently though. There wasn't a lot of point squirting activator into the sides because it wasn't going to get there. So do its thing. And of course now I have to cut the tab off, and I'll need to pin this. So he's got nice big chunky feet, which will take a pin quite nicely. Flatten these out. Sorry, I was doing a lot off camera. So that's over here is where my rubbish pile is. It's just finding a spot that the natural contours of the rock means he's standing up fairly straight, which is probably there. Is that too wobbly? Yeah, it is a fraction, so if we just take that down a little bit. Where's that bit, wasn't it? Yeah, that's it. There we go. Yeah, I need some pins in his feet. Again, as these are big chunky feet, I think I want to go a bit deeper. Can't find the hole now. There it is. Yeah, this is what you save the smaller pieces from the pins for. Missed. There you go, I'll have a couple of pins, and then I can use those to work out where on the base the holes are going to be, drill through the base so I can push the pins all the way through, and I'll bend them around underneath and glue them to the underside. So let's do that, although I've just bent that pin. So grab another. I was doing this with pieces of brass I'd bought off the internet to make pins that were far more expensive. I'd probably be much more concerned when I bent one and be trying to straighten it out. But as I'm using paper clips, I don't care. Well, that one is hardening off. Let's drill the holes for the in the backs. These two. For their banners. See on that one, there is a definite crease in their armour, whereas those ones were quite smooth. So I'm going to have to try and get it right on that crease. If it goes off to either side, it's going to look odd. There we go, right in the middle. A common mistake with drill bits, particularly when they're small, is when you're going in, you turn one way, and when you come out, you almost want to, you feel like you want to undo it, come back that way like a screwdriver, so one way in, one way out. Keep turning it the same way and gently pull it out, and you'll end up with a smoother hole because it'll deburr it as it goes. Whereas if you come in, you screw in and then screw out, you end up with a sort of rifled hole, if you like. There is that one. Oh, plenty. And can I cut myself a little starting nick? Let's try that. Not quite. It's brought it over enough. So how you doing? Yeah? How are the kids? Marvellous. Good to know. It's important that we bond as fellow gamers. You know, the really loyal ones. I've already written dongle. Now write bond at 3 hours. And while we've got him down here, we may as well drill his one as well. Yeah. I'm going to want it to be in the middle there, I think. That's too high, so yeah, let's go there. is on the money. Which is a phrase I have never used in my life until this moment. I will probably never use again. But it is. And again, big chunky model. Let's go a bit deeper. Need the air somewhere to go. Now we will use that one that I bent earlier because I'll get a nice grip on it, and we can use that as a boring tool. Hollow these out a bit. Yeah, I've just bent that spear or that lance. I really didn't want to do that. That one doesn't want to go in. Why doesn't that one want to go in? That one's gone in. That one's fine. Hollow you out a little bit more. Maybe that was the problem. Yeah, a couple of little burrs I can feel in there. Just enough. How are you? Are you burry? That seems okay. Much better. Plenty in that one. Right. So they're doing their thing. Let's chop these pins. Ow. Yeah. Yeah, we want him to go about. Yeah. I cut these to the same length. Theoretically, when I stand this guy on there, they should. It's a bit far forward there. Let's shift him back. Yeah, that's the one. Go through with there. And that'll then come out, as you can see, on the other side. And the same with that one. One's through, and he's gone through the old hole. I don't really want to go through. Yeah, just poking through. And that's him nicely central. The pin goes all the way through to the hard plastic. So again, just daubing it over a few places just to give it some strength. That was in that one and that one. And poke those both through. That's him doing his thing. And I need more pins to make flags. Mm-hmm. That's quite a deep one as well, wasn't he? Can't do them all that sort of size. Take some of the bears off to get them through. So maybe a cut any sort of soft metal, when you cut anything really with a pair of snips like that, and essentially it's squeezing it so it gets slightly wide, and it tapers it out where it gets narrower. Start with this one. Again, lining up with the ridges in the plate in the armour rather than vertically. Necessarily vertically, anyway. I think these guys are actually standing pretty straight and tall, so. Face that way, and here's my heavy cavalry. It's just this guy and his lance to get done. Again, I don't think there's a need for pinning. It's quite a nice socket for, or a ridge essentially, for this guy's arm to just slide into. Not a ridge, it's a valley or a trough. So, how are we doing? The video's running a little long. I suspect I'll have chopped this down into a couple of videos. But there is one last model in my particular force, and that would be a lord who is atop a much larger version of one of these things. And he's got a separate arm, a separate head, another one of the fish type shields. Beastie's got a separate head, which I'm going to need to fill, but I don't think I'm going to need to pin. Separate legs. Front and rear. Again, it's such a bulky model when it's quite low to the ground. I don't think I'm going to have to do that. I've already trimmed, filed, sanded, bent into shape, and done quite a bit of test fitting on this one, so he should go together without any hassle. And then obviously I'm going to make a, what did I say, obviously, then I am going to make a rock for him to stand on, because at the moment he's a lot shorter than the others, and being a lord, I'm going to give him 2 back banners. To make him look extra posh. I was quite surprised actually that this model's in metal, because my Kasani force has got a similar sized lord type character on a big beastie, and he's resin. But yeah, as you can see, although he's far more important, he's much lower in stature, being mounted on the ground. Same size base. To one side, that to one side. Rub off that bit of super glue that's stuck to my hand. Now, part of me's wondering, do I want to put him on a really big rock to get him some extra height? That sort of height. Which is something of a centerpiece model, might not be a bad thing. Just from a height point of view, that still has him lower than this guy. Though taller than a normal guy. And way taller than the regular guys. And of course the guys on foot. Part of me just wonders, should he be taller still? Actually, those pieces go together really well. Let's give that a go. See how that works. He'll still stand up there quite nicely. Yeah. Lost it now. Is that it? Yeah, that was it. I'm not bothered about having a small amount of ledge up here, because I can cover that in like foliage, and I quite like the idea of having that undercut. base a bit better. Although, again, I'm not bothered if there's a bit of an overhang. Yeah, I think it might be too high. Yeah, I've gone too wonky. It's the whole rock sloping that way, which is pushing him out to the side of the base. Yeah, we'll drop back to a single. It gets him as high as this guy, and with the two big banners, it'll be alright. It'll look alright. Sorry, I keep going off to the side where the rubbish pile is. I was trying to claw this round so it just tucks in a bit and it'll slot onto the base, which gives you that nice clean edge. Yeah, it keeps him in the centre. Front and back. Just want to get rid of all of these, all of the undercuts now. I've got an undercut all the way around. And then yeah, you just need to scuff up the top. So as I'm scratching, I'm turning, because if I don't, all the scratches will be in the same direction, and you end up with, it looks more ploughed than natural. So some with the grain, if you like, and some against. Some deeper where there's not going to be any contact, like underneath, in the centre. This one, I think I'm going to do the other type of pinning. I'm going to glue him in place and then pin up through the bottom. But before I do that, I'm going to bend a few of his claws round so that they grab the rocks. These pieces are just getting a little bit too squished and battered. All I'm doing with the cork is I don't want to end up with teeth marks in the soft metal. With this one being such a low centre of gravity, and there's nothing extreme to, I don't think he's going to need pinning. As you probably noticed, I didn't bother to cover up the hole in the base, because this rock that I've created covers the entire thing. Big blob underneath. Copious amounts of activator on there. And Centre him that way, centre him that way. Some visible in the slot, so we'll square in there. Yeah, he looks nice and stable. Yeah, got the head, which again I've already test fitted. I know that fits. Although now I think about it, I probably should have done the holes for his back banners first, but yeah. It's getting late, I'm getting tired, which probably isn't the best time to be doing modelling, but meh. If I can get all this done in one hit, that would be nice. And again, he's got his head that we need to stick on. And another lance, which looks to be slightly smaller than the one the knights are carrying. It is slightly smaller. He's not as high up, I suppose, so... yeah. Fifth shield we're not using. Head at the back of the neck. Excess metal. And base of the spear. Which isn't a spear, it's a lance. The principle applies. No, I'm not going to stick these on until I've done the holes. But while I'm waiting for that to fully set, seems like a good as time as any to do these. Right, now looking at the back, that would be two fairly sensible places to put them. Or I could put them right in the base of his shoulder. I quite like the idea of the base of his shoulder, so that's where we'll go. At least if I do it at the base of his shoulder on both sides, then I should be consistent. Unless he's some kind of weird lopsided freak, which, yeah, essentially alien race. Could be. One will go in there. Both should be plenty deep enough. I'd be surprised actually if they meet in the middle. So put it about there. That one's coming in at... Yeah, they probably do meet in the middle. And the last two. Yeah, fucking got myself at some point. It's not particularly difficult to bend those. It's more about getting a... You don't want it to be a gradual bend, you want it to be a sharp bend. So. Right. Again, a small bit. Boring out the holes. So they go in, and they're both fairly parallel. They're just a little further forward than I was hoping for. I think you're going to have to stick one in, get it in the right place, and then get the other one parallel to it. So we'll start with that one. I think that's going to be the more awkward of the two. Tiny bit of shoulder pad in the way. Yeah, much better. Actually, rather than having them straight up, I might have them flared slightly, so that, rather than flapping like that, they flap that way. Not that you can see that. So yeah, instead of having them running like that, the more like that. Be up. Yeah, it looks to be about right. Tiny head put in place. Just sit in there. And one lance, as with all the others. Him throwing it down. Do I want it up? I ended it up and across actually, so we'll go with that. And there you have it. My entire force of Fubani Knights assembled in 2 2-hour sessions, which was actually 1 4-hour session, but we'll call it a 2-hour. 2 2 hours. You know what I mean? 2 2 2. 1 4-hour session split into 2 videos. But what's that for? Oh, maybe he's got a sword, doesn't he, instead of that thing? So 5 spare shields and a spare lance. There's the Lord and his hound. 1 unit of heavy cavalry, 1 unit of light cavalry, 1 small unit of militia, 1 herder, and a pack of Greku, and 1 slinger unit for support. So there you go. Thanks for watching. As I said, this was a bit of an experiment with a different angle from the modelling point of view, a bit more close up. Hopefully you can see a bit more of what's going on. My cunning plan over the next month or so is, having now put these together, is to come back and paint them. And again, I'm thinking I'm going to stick with this close-in view so you can actually see what I'm doing. But there you have it. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next video. If you've enjoyed this one, found it helpful, don't forget a thumbs up. It will help. And of course, if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the channel. Tell other people to subscribe to the channel. Get them out there, get it noticed. And yeah, there'll be more videos on this force, getting it all painted up. And then hopefully I'll be doing a small series on how to actually play the game with some of the other models that I've already got painted. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Bye bye.